We've got the Ford Bronco Sport Heritage model.
Baby blue Bronco. Easy. Oh, my sunglasses went flying.
That's got some pretty good power, doesn't it, for
it's
the base?
Surprisingly good considering what's under the hood. You'll be shocked. What's under the hood of this thing?
A 1.5-liter EcoBoost. It's a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It has an 8-speed automatic transmission, 181 horsepower, and 190 pound-feet of torque. You'll get about 670 kilometers, 416 miles with a full tank of gas. Each model comes standard with 4x4 capability.
The second option is only available on the top two trims. It's a 2-liter EcoBoost engine with 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. You'll get 592 kilometers or 368 miles with a full tank of fuel. So the one we're driving is the Heritage model of the Bronco Sport, kind of middle of the road. We're going to get into the base model. What do you get? What are the key standard features?
The base trim comes with an 8-inch touchscreen with Sync 3, wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a 4.2-inch instrument cluster, 6-speaker audio system, cloth upholstery, 6-way manual driver's seat, 4-way manual passenger seat, a manual liftgate, 17-inch wheels, and Ford Copilot 360 technology, including blind spot monitoring and rear cross-traffic alert.
GOAT modes. Go over any terrain.
Yep.
Or greatest of all time. You decide. What's the greatest of all time, Andrea? What can we put it in?
Well, you got to put it in S for subscribe. And if you can hit that notification bell, you'll be notified when all of our reviews drop, and then you can watch them.
And we do this, the Cup of Car review, twice a week. The first one drops on Wednesday.
We put another one out on Saturday.
So make sure you like and subscribe, but also follow on Instagram. It's Motormouth_Andrea to see what's going on behind the scenes. For me, it's Motormouth_Auto, and the links are below the like button. This video is brought to you by Car Cost Canada. Get the dealer's cost, list of rebates, plus discounted interest rates. Use the promo code MOTORMOUTH to become an expert member and get extra searches. The link is in the description below. I'm going to tell you, Andrea,
Yeah?
even though this is like baby blue,
Yeah.
I really like it. This is the Heritage model. There's a more expensive Heritage Limited. We're going to talk about that as we go through the video. Biggest thing for me, I love the white wheels.
Yeah, well, this Heritage model comes with exterior white accents, whether you get the roof or some of the trim, as well as the white 17-inch wheels. I think it's really cool, very retro. Ford was inspired by the original Bronco from 1966, and they decided to come out with this Heritage model that's very retro. I think it's a great idea.
Well, I think we should say this Heritage trim is new for 2023. I like it. To me, especially with the mud flaps, it kind of reminds me of the Land Rover Defender we had last year. A little bit of a toy truck kind of look. I think it looks really cool.
I like the lettering in the front in red. That is exclusive to the Heritage model, whether you get this base Heritage or the Limited. And then just some cool Bronco lettering, and you'll notice some white strips on the exterior.
Would you get the baby blue?
I wouldn't get the baby blue. I would get that hot red chili pepper. I think that's what they call it. I think that with a white roof and those white wheels, it's called Oxford White, would look so cool. For 2023, Ford has also added an off-road package, which is available on Big Bend and Outer Banks. It delivers even more off-road capability by adding steel bash plates covering key 4x4 powertrain areas, including the front metal skid plate, fuel tank protection, and canister shield. This package also adds a matte black hood graphic with a small Bronco horse logo and 17-inch carbonized gray painted wheels.
I think that's all really nice, Andrea, but I'm sure most people just drive this to work, take their kids to school,
to the
go
mall,
to the grocery store. I think it's being used for that. The nice thing is it is fairly capable, and people who maybe have a cottage or a chalet or a cabin might be able to use some of that stuff.
Or even heavy snow. I mean, it's got great traction. If you do want to use it for its off-road capability, it is totally capable. But I actually think with deep snow, it would be nice to have. It gets 8.8 inches of ground clearance.
All right, so back to the engine. So this is a 3-cylinder turbocharged engine.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a You got to get your head around that. The first time I ever drove a turbo 3-cylinder was in a Ford, in the Fiesta and the Focus. I was really impressed with it. That was a 1-cylinder back then.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's something about this configuration seems to work in this vehicle and the Nissan Rogue.
Yeah.
They have good torque.
Yeah, really great torque. I wasn't sure what to expect from this powertrain option. I thought that it would be more sluggish than it is. In the city, it's quite nice. I mean, you'll never feel that there's a lack of power. When you get it on the highway and you're ready to pass, you're gonna have to push it a little bit. The cabin does get louder. It's just not as quick as that 2-liter EcoBoost.
The 2-liter is kind of overkill for this size of vehicle, but this one, you got to do a little more planning. That's about it.
Whether you drive it in normal mode, sport mode, you will find the suspension is firmer in this model, and also the steering feels a little bit heavier than I expected.
Every time I drive either the Ford Escape, which this is based on, or the Bronco Sport, I'm always pleasantly surprised by the quietness of the cabin, the refinement of the ride. Ford has done a good job with these compact utilities because this is the meat of the market, and I'm a big fan of Escape, and I really like this too.
Now, some followers on Instagram were thinking that this is a subcompact crossover. It's actually a compact crossover and goes head to head with the Forester or the Jeep Cherokee, not the Compass.
All right, the inside, we're going to talk more about this when we get into questions, coffee, and cars. And because the Escape has just been updated for 2023, we were hoping this would get it, but it's not the case yet. It's quite plastic fantastic in here, but I like the color contrast, the blue, the plaid sort of seats remind me a bit of GTI actually. And then the white, the trim that goes around the car.
Yeah, there's some red and blue stitching in here to go with the exterior robin's egg color. I think that it looks good, but it definitely doesn't feel like you're driving a more upscale vehicle like the CX-50 with those terracotta Napa leather seats. I mean, it's kind of night and day from this, and this is priced, you know, fairly high.
The one thing I'll say, Andrea, is the white trim that they use, the accents they use in here. There's one that goes right across the top of the dash. Now, do you see it reflecting in the window?
I do. We've got a lot of sun today, so it does reflect.
Yeah. They should have left that part black. It's kind of annoying. You know what you could do, Andrea?
What could you do?
You get the black hockey tape out.
Yeah.
You put that over top of that section. Yeah.
Really? In my new Bronco Sport?
I would do such a nice job you wouldn't even notice. I'd challenge you to find it.
I really like the comfort level in this cabin. The seating position is great. You sit up and over the dash. It's wide, the visibility is good, and I think that it's well laid out at the center console. You've got plenty of storage there, as well as the door pockets.
And nice little cubbies here and there. This one has a wireless charger. There was no height adjustment at all for this seat on this trim, whether it's ratchet or electric. And I'm got a long body, and good thing there's a lot of headroom in here, because I feel like I'm really looking down on Andrea.
Now let's get into the trims a bit. You can add packages to each trim to get some extra features. We'll go to the Badlands trim. You know, for a price point over $46,000, not in Canada, not coming with things like a moonroof or a wireless charger, power driver seat, I think that's kind of a miss. The top Heritage Limited trim gets all the extra features like a power passenger seat, the 10-speaker B&O sound system, leather trim seats, driver seat memory, a heated steering wheel, and a wireless charger. Now, you can add all these features to the Badlands trim, but they are in a package.
But the Bronco Sport is missing some things.
No ventilated front seats on any model or a power tailgate.
That's crazy. All right, let's get into the space. This is a compact utility. Of course, it has excellent headroom because of the square shape. The legroom isn't that bad. The seats do not recline though.
Comparing the Bronco Sport to competitors like the Forester or the CX-50, front row legroom is very good at 42.4 inches, but it's the Forester with almost an inch more extra space. Second row legroom at 36.9 inches is a little smaller than these competitors.
Now, the liftgate isn't power operated, but you do have the option to open the glass separately, which is kind of cool. When you do lift the liftgate on this one, it has the divider system. You get a separate shelf that you can flip, fold, and remove. And then when you lift up the bottom cargo area, well, you look at that, a real full-size spare tire.
By the way, that organized cargo system, Zach, is available but not standard on any model. Cargo space behind the second row at 32.5 cubic feet is the biggest compared to the Forester and CX50, and overall cargo space at 65.2 cubic feet falls short to the Forester but beats the CX50.
So you want to know about connectivity, reliability. Let's get into it.
Time now for questions, coffee, and cars.
Your questions from Instagram.
Any major differences aside from aesthetics to the Badlands versus the Heritage Limited or the Heritage and other 1.5 models?
I think it's the suspension, right? Because the one we had before was the Badlands, and then the Heritage Limited gets the same Haas system, right?
That's right.
But this does not.
This doesn't. So you will find that the suspension in this definitely feels a little bit firmer than what we experienced with the Badlands. So the Badlands and the Heritage Limited top model are basically the same except for aesthetics. Now, I want to point out that the Badlands doesn't come with as many features as the Heritage Limited. You can buy them in a package on the Badlands.
Of course.
But the Heritage trim, they come standard. As for the other 1.5 Heritage model, which we're driving, or the other models, it's the same suspension, it's just aesthetics, and it's the same with features.
Okay, so quickly before we move on, the Haas system, can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's the high-speed off-road suspension.
Yeah.
And when you drive along, it just gobbles up the bumps, similar to what you get with the larger Bronco.
Yeah.
It's really quite a difference. So if you're somebody that's really into a smoother, eating up all the bump suspension, those two are the ones to get.
Is this comfy enough for a daily driver, on-road only person?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think the one thing that Ford does really well, good seats.
Yeah, the seats are really comfortable. I don't know how Ford does it. It doesn't matter what vehicle we get in. We always go, oh man, these seats are so comfy.
And also fairly quiet and refined on road. The one thing is the suspension difference we just mentioned. This one is a little bit firmer. It's not to the point where, I couldn't drive it.
No.
But if you live in a pothole area or country roads with a lot of, ruts in that washboard, the other one would be the one to get.
Yeah, I think I prefer the Badlands. I don't think I would pay in Canada almost $57,000 for the Heritage Limited model with the 2-liter EcoBoost, but I have to say the Badlands for over $46,000, not getting all those features of course, is more reasonably priced, and I do prefer the suspension in it.
Way better.
I like the look of this, but for the price I would expect a few more features like Sync 4, and the 360 camera on the top trim. I want to jump in that the Badlands trim is the only model that gets 180-degree camera with a split view. The Heritage top trim does not. I'm disappointed. I got to be honest with you, Sync 3 is really outdated.
This really needs the same updates they gave Escape, same platform. It can be done Ford, so you know it's coming. I think, I'm trying to remember now when they came out. The Escape came out first, then the Bronco Sport, so it's probably going to be updated maybe for 2024, so if you're not in a rush, it might be worth it to get the updated things. And also, Andrea, call me lazy. Call me lazy. Call me lazy.
Call you lazy? What's this about
Call me lazy?
You are lazy.
I want a power liftgate.
Yes.
And it doesn't come with one.
On any trim. Now, the Escape does get a power liftgate. So what's going on here? Now, some of you might complain that the 8-inch touchscreen looks a little bit small, but some of you don't care about screens. The thing that bothers me is that it's wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If I'm going to spend this much on a vehicle, please, I'm going to need wireless.
And now it's time for our hot topic. What's this one, Andrea?
The car looks really nice. It's a shame that the reliability reviews are not very favorable.
So there have been some issues, mostly around this new 3-cylinder turbo.
Yeah.
If you're really worried about it and you have the money, you could go up to the 2-liter EcoBoost engine. That engine's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Land Rover and Range Rover used it, for example, in the Evoque when it first came out. So that engine's quite hardy. So there have been some recalls on this one. What are they?
500,000 vehicles have been recalled, 2020 to 2023 Ford Escapes and 2021 to 2023 Bronco Sports for a cracked fuel injector. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to affect all models, but the potential is there. And then of course, if the fuel leaks into the engine, there's a chance of a fire.
Well, the thing is that doesn't sound terminal, which is, I mean, if it catches fire it is, but it's not something that is going to be hard for them to change.
Yeah.
They basically pull out the old injector and put in a new one. This can happen. You can have a batch of bad parts from a supplier.
Yeah.
For example, Stellantis just had a bad batch of clutches for the Wrangler, and they're replacing those under warranty. So these things can happen. The good thing is it's under recall. The one thing I'll say about Ford is if you look at their vehicles over time, once the vehicle's been in the market for several years, they do improve.
Yeah, Ford has had some issues with reliability. They've got new models that have come out, from the Mach-E to the Ford F-150 Lightning. So they are definitely dealing with reliability issues, and the Escape and the Bronco Sport are not helping matters, but they're recalling, they're doing their due diligence. This is a really good product. I like it. I mean, I like the way it handles and the way it looks, but I think I would feel more comfortable going with the 2-liter EcoBoost.
Yeah, and if you can afford it, you get that higher speed suspension, which is really a big difference between this and those models.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the vital stats of this, like the pricing, the fuel economy, the towing capacity, and more.
Let's start with pricing. We'll do Canada first and then move on to the US. The base trim starts at just under $36,000 Canadian, and the top Heritage Limited trim is just over $56,500. In the US, the base trim is just over $29,000, and the top Heritage Limited trim is just over $44,500 US.
Here's the fuel economy for the base engine: 9.3 liters per 100 kilometers in the city, 8.4 on the highway. That's 25 miles per gallon city, 28 miles per gallon highway. For the 2-liter EcoBoost, it's 11.1 liters per 100 kilometers city, 9 on the highway. That's 21 miles per gallon in the city, 26 miles per gallon highway. This Bronco Sport can tow 2,200 pounds and comes with a warranty of 3 years, 60,000 kilometers, or 36,000 miles. So you like the idea of a compact SUV with some ruggedness that can do extra stuff. What else can you buy?
For your consideration, 4 vehicles for you to consider.
Up first is the Mazda CX-50. It has a 2.5-liter non-turbo and a turbo engine with either 187 horsepower or up to 256 horsepower. It has an MSRP starting price of just over $38,000.
The RAV4 Trail, it's called Adventure in the United States, with a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine, 203 horsepower, and a starting price just over $40,000.
Subaru Forester Wilderness with a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder, 182 horsepower, and a starting price just under $40,000.
The Jeep Cherokee with a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, 180 horsepower, and a starting price of $49,000.
So there are 4 capable crossovers for you to consider.
Lightning round: 2 things we like, 2 things we like to see improved.
I love the look of this Heritage model.
I love the look of this Heritage model.
What I'd like to see is updated tech. We need Sync 4 in here.
Because I'm lazy, a power liftgate.
I really like the Heritage look and the retro vibe, but boy, does this thing ever get pricey.
Ford, you've got to update this with the same stuff you put in the Escape.
This video is brought to you by Car Cost Canada. Get the dealer's cost, list of rebates, plus discounted interest rates. Use the promo code MOTORMOUTH to become an expert member and get extra searches. The link is in the description below.